Uh, Depersonalization and derealization is a condition that affects many people. With derealization, people feel that they don't really connect well to reality. Reality seems foreign and strange to them. With depersonalization, they feel that they don't really connect well to themselves, that they might be like standing besides themselves, hear themselves speaking and acting. And all these conditions can cause a lot of anxiety to people. The first time I experienced DPDR is probably during my years of adolescence. At that time, I had no idea that such a condition even existed. As a matter of fact, I only know that for a couple of years now. What I experienced during my years of adolescence were episodes where I felt as if things were really unreal for me, and I wasn't really sure what I was doing in this reality of mine, which was also a very anxiety-providing condition for me. Episodes of DPDR happened more or less spontaneously. They all, I think, were connected to intense anxiety, which I experienced during a period of transition after high school, transitioning to college, not knowing what to choose and what to do, and not knowing who I was going to be in the future. Feelings of derealization are just frightening. It is feelings where a certain anxiety arises inside of you, and you might feel a little disoriented for a certain period of time and not exactly knowing how you want to react. So you have to kind of compose yourself, get a hold of reality before you can start doing anything else. I'm still sometimes experiencing episodes of DPDR, not as intense as I experienced them when I was younger. So the message here would be, it gets better with time. But I'm still sometimes experiencing it, especially when something doesn't go as expected. I'm not doing particularly well when, for example, I'm looking for things that I think to be in a particular place and don't find them. So depending, I guess, on previous conditions, that can provide you with a feeling of being, in a sense, derealized to a certain extent. It is difficult to say how often I experience DPDR. It is, in a sense, always a particular experience that comes at certain moments where stress has piled up or anxiety has piled up. So I can't really quantify how often it is, maybe couple of times a year. Episodes of DPDR were longer when I was young. They could last for a couple of days or at least for a couple of hours where the feeling was more intense. The feelings I have now in somewhat more advanced age are shorter. It's more like little flashes or feelings that arise for me. My last episode of DPDR was a couple of weeks ago. It was almost a funny one. I was going to New York with my wife, and for some reason we lost each other. And I started asking myself, was she actually with me? My wife, after that, laughed about the episode. But I think it is one of the signs that, for me, reality sometimes seems looser than perhaps for other people, and it can scare me if I have the experience of that. For me, I would think that I rather have more DR than DP. I think more derealized. Experience of depersonalization might occur, for example, in experiences of public speaking. When I was younger, starting my academic career, speaking in public was a very frightening experience. And oftentimes when you start speaking in public, you hear yourself starting to speak, but it is as if you stand next to yourself and you actually think, oh my God, is it really me talking here? And now I'm continuing to talk. So in that sense, that was an experience I had more when I was younger. I think what lasted for me is perhaps episodes of derealization. I started talking about DPDR only recently because, as I said before, I wasn't really sure about that condition. I didn't even know that it existed or that it applies to me. I now start talking about it more to people, which is a great relief, because you realize that things that have frightened you personally are things that other people share as well. And that makes such a phenomenon, I think, less scary for oneself. Well, a good way of connecting people with DPDR would certainly be to mention this condition more often, together with other conditions like anxiety, depression that people experience more often. So just simply mentioning it on the related media platforms would be very important. And it would also be important to describe it as not a complete nightmare, but as an experience that occurs, that can pass by, that people can get a handle on if they know what it is. All that would certainly help. So we also, I think, need to take away the fear of facing that phenomenon. So knowing that that there's a condition called DPDR, and knowing that this condition has affected me is very empowering, because once you have a name for certain phenomena that you have, and especially when these phenomena come with a great deal of anxiety, is already a first step at overcoming them. It helps you to know that you're not the only one experiencing it. It helps you share these feelings, and I think that also contributes to dealing with them in a better way. One can easily think about DPDR in philosophical terms. It certainly aligns with theories that show us that the world is based on our perceptions and our thought, that the world as we perceive it is one that we have construed. And that the personality that we have is one that is construed as well over the course of time through the memories that we choose to keep and all these things. So DPDR doesn't come as a surprise to someone who studies philosophy. To a certain extent, one might ask, why not everyone experiences these symptoms to a certain degree, given that reality so much depends on the way that we look at it and construe it. It is not clear why certain people experience DPDR more than others. Some people might just be more solidly rooted in the world that they experience. The world for us is also a practical manner. It is something that we deal with. And once we know what to do, how to react to the outside world, we usually have a good handle on it. So for some people who experience the world in a successful, practical way, the experience might just not arise as much as for other people. Well, in episodes of DPDR, what really helps me just is to focus on myself a little bit. For example, control my breath, pause for a second, take in the environment around me. It is usually accompanied with a certain rush of anxiety, so you have to let that rush subside, and then usually you start to see things more clearly. It leaves you a little bit empty and confused. You certainly feel exhausted from all the energy that you had to invest in facing your anxiety in that moment. So you need to recover from that phenomenon. That's my experience. My first advice for people who are experiencing DPDR would be not to be afraid of it, to see it as something that can affect many people to varying degrees, something that can get worse with certain conditions in their lives, something that provides them greater anxiety than other things. So first of all, not to be afraid of the fear is perhaps the most important advice. And the second advice is it really gets better with age. If I were now as young again as I once was and experienced the same episodes of DPDR again, I would try to calm myself down. I would try to tell myself to think about the things that I actually really want, think about the things I really desire, what I want to do with my life, not to be overwhelmed by the enormity of things that I could do, but try to take it step by step by looking at the things that actually lie in front of me and meeting the challenges that present themselves. Don't be afraid of the fear. Know that there's such a thing. Know that you sometimes are afraid of what reality is and how you act in this reality and who you are, and just let that happen. Be confident that these periods will pass and that at some point you will find back into reality and find back to yourself.